Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Reckless Paradise podcast. Tonight's episode is a Throwback Thursday. Also, my name is Dystro. If I didn't, since I didn't say that hardly. But tonight's episode is a Throwback Thursday and is another SummerSlam. Yes, another SummerSlam, another one. We are talking about 2005. Remember me telling you about '08 to '09? That was kind of a trying time. '05 was a trying time as well. And if many of you have seen this pay-per-view, the main event for this show on the Raw brand, on the Raw side of things, was Hulk Hogan versus Shawn Michaels. Two of the biggest backstage politickers of all time. And I mean, that goes to show, how much pull and, prominence that Hulk Hogan and Shawn Michaels had at the time. Because this pay per view got 650,000 pay per view buys. Close to, well, I was going to say close to roughly 19,000, but it was a little over 18,000. And, like I said, it is a trying time in the world of WWE. But on the SmackDown side, we had John Bradshaw Layfield versus Batista for the World Heavyweight Championship in a no holds barred match. And then another preliminary match on the Raw side was John Cena versus Jericho for the WWE Championship. And then the main match on the undercard from SmackDown was the infamous Custody of Dominic ladder match between Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. Okay. So, this was held in Washington, D.C., also, which is where Batista's from. And plus, I had read reports that it was supposed to be a three-match series between Hogan and Michaels, but Hogan didn't want to do it. Shawn Michaels didn't want to do it, so they just settled on the one. I think it would have been for the best if they just did the one, which they did. There were 9 matches on the show, including one on Heat, which was Chris Masters versus the Hurricane, which went almost 2 minutes. Wow. So, the first match of the night was Chris Benoit versus Orlando Jordan, if you remember him. For the United States Championship, went 25 seconds because Chris Benoit put the cripple crossface on him, and Orlando just immediately tapped out. Edge versus Matt Hardy, which was during the infamous angle where Edge and Lita were dating in real life, and went behind Matt Hardy's back and all that stuff. And like in later years, they've made up for it and become best friends and buddies and all that stuff, which is cool. I'm actually kind of glad that they did that. Because if they had that bad blood still to like today and all that stuff, like God knows like what they would have done like if they had just been in the same locker room together, So Edge won. Edge won by TKO, which was a Matt Hardy got his head stuck in between the middle and the top rope, and it was just basically him just like kicking his head and all that shit. Which I mean, gruesome thing. Um, we have Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero for the Custody of Dominic ladder match. We had, which was, I would say, there was 5 matches of the night on this show. Technically, technically, like one was kind of just not like it could have been a little bit longer. But I digress. I mean, if they could have probably just cut like a few minutes off that ladder match, and could have given it to the World Heavyweight Championship match, I think it would have been fine. But it told a good story, and plus, it is the infamous Eddie Guerrero moment where it's like, "Where the fuck is Vicky? God damn it!" It is the infamous spot where Vicky Guerrero missed her cue and all that stuff. It still goes down in infamy as to this day. Kurt Angle versus Eugene for Kurt Angle's Olympic gold medals, which went 4.5 minutes. Orton versus Undertaker, which, to be honest, that was Taker's. No, this was Orton's win against Taker after they fought at WrestleMania 21 earlier the year. Which, I mean, to be honest with you, Randy Orton getting the win over Undertaker, being the legend killer that he is and all that stuff, makes sense to me. John Cena versus Chris Jericho for the WWE Championship, like I said. Batista versus John Bradshaw Layfield in a no holds barred match, which went 9 minutes. Which, like I said, it could have taken some time off of the ladder match between Ray and Eddie, and could have given it to the World Heavyweight Championship. Could have made for a better story. I mean, could have maybe said the exact same thing for the Hulk Hogan and Shawn Michaels match. Maybe could have taken some of that in half, and it would have been way better because it was just lots of lots of shtick and gaga and all that stuff, and Shawn overselling like a motherfucker and all that shit, and for Hogan, and Hogan just doing his thing and whatever. And it's just it's I don't know, man. It's just I haven't really watched the match back in a few years and all that stuff, but it's just I don't know. It's just one of those matches where it's just why um I don't think it should. I don't think it should have went as long as it did because it went 21 minutes, almost 22, and just kind of just be lots of gaga and all that shit, and I don't know, but I mean, hey, it's we got Hulk Hogan and Shawn Michaels out of it. So the aftermath of this was, the following night on Raw, Eric Bischoff made a "You're Fired" match between Cena and Jericho. And Cena wins, and Jericho was fired. But this was to write off Jericho to go do the tour with Fozzy around this time, so he would be gone for a while. And then Cena goes into a program with Kurt Angle and becomes, until the start of 06, which is crazy. It's good. It's a crazy long time that they've had it for that long. Since the summer of 05 in August, so September, October, November, December, into January, so that's crazy. The feud between Batista and John Bradshaw Layfield ended with Batista defeated JBL in a Texas Bull Rope match. And this also began the storyline with Eddie Guerrero. And then this was the storyline where they were going to face at No Mercy. But then it just ended prematurely because of Guerrero's unexpected death. But the penultimate feud, the feud between Matt Hardy and Edge, continued with a street fight, which ended in no contest, a steel cage match, which Hardy won, and then it ended with Hardy losing a loser leaves Raw match on October 3rd. Which, I mean, it was a good feud, but I think if they could have given Matt some more majority of the wins and all that stuff, I think it would have been better because I mean, Brian Zane had talked about this in length on his channel about the whole feud, but like, like Matt Hardy got the short end of the stick, kind of being fodder to Edge, and it kind of sucks because like Edge and Hardy, it was like this big money feud, and it's that life imitates art sort of mentality. And it kind of just didn't give Matt Hardy the credibility that he deserves. Um, but then it kind of, it just when Matt left Raw and go to SmackDown, it just kind of just didn't. I mean, it picked up for him a little bit because he started the feud with MVP or the U.S. title and became tag champions with him and all stuff. Um, but like like he could have. I think Matt could have done more on Raw. Between that Edge and Lita thing. But I mean that's another story for another time. But on the SmackDown side, the Undertaker Randy Orton rivalry continued in a handicap casket match at No Mercy. And then it goes into um well it was in a casket, and then Taker comes back at Survivor Series, and then they go into Hell in a Cell. Which was at Armageddon, I think, that year. Um, I mean, some of these feuds that are coming out of things is kind of not bad. It could have been better. I mean, the Shawn Michaels Chris Masters feud. I mean that should be pretty good because Michaels is a mega star. Chris Masters is coming up and all stuff, and he had a big win on pay per view. So, and then the feud between Benoit and Orlando Jordan kept losing in rematches and then lasting less than a minute each. That's crazy. Um, so the feud between Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio ended when Guerrero defeated Mysterio in a steel cage match. And then afterwards, Guerrero became number one contender to Batista. And then Mysterio resumed his singles career. And then October 9th at No Mercy, Guerrero was unsuccessful in winning the World Heavyweight Championship. It says after the event, Guerrero slowly turned heel or turned face as he formed a relationship or friendship with Batista, and then Guerrero later died of heart failure on November 13th. Um, yeah, it's kind of like one of those things where it's like if he didn't pass away, I think he could have won the championship from Batista at that point in November. Um, and it just sucks, like having most most likely being like your last final matches on Earth, and kind of just being like like waking up the next day and just having that pain in your chest, and you're just passing away, and it sucks. It really sucks because I think if Eddie Guerrero didn't pass away, I think a lot of people would have seen Eddie Guerrero back in WWE mentoring Dominic Mysterio and being like that, that father figure that he was in previous years. Um, I think it would have been a crazy turn of events, sort of thing. Um, but like we won't get to see that because he's passed away, and he's been dead for 21 years now. It would be almost 21 years in November. And it just sucks, man. It just sucks. I mean, same with like Owen Hart, when he passed away in 1999. Like if he had not gone into that freak accident at the over the edge thing, I think he could have had some like really good matches in ROH. If he was still wrestling at that point, obviously. Um, or I mean, he could have been mentoring like Daniel Bryan, Roddy Strong. Like he could have done anything he could have wanted in that business. Um, and I think a lot of people would be a good like student under him because like he trained in the dungeon, he survived the dungeon and all that stuff, and like his dad Stu Hart was a good teacher. Like um, but like we'll never get to hear or see from him again. Um, so this was an interesting little like tidbit, like note here in the aftermath on this pay per view. It says in mid 2006, WWE launched a third brand dubbed ECW, which featured wrestlers from the former Extreme Championship Wrestling promotion as well as newer talent. Additionally, the World Heavyweight Championship was reactivated, and then third concurrently active world title in WWE. Um, I mean, and it's like ECW as a whole, it ran from the early 90s to like early 2001, and then it got revived in 2005 because they did the one night stand in '05, and then they did the one night stand in 2006. And then they became, and then they did the third brand thing. Um, it it I don't want to say it was like trash or anything. Like it tried to become ECW. Excuse me. It tried to become ECW, but it was the creative like between Paul Heyman and Vince McMahon, and they were always clashing together. And then like that's like the straw that broke the camel's back was when Vince McMahon wanted Bobby Lashley to win the ECW Extreme Chamber at December to Dismember in '06. If you remember that pay per view, God help you. But if you remember that, like like Paul Heyman, he leaves. And he wanted Punk to go over, which would have made sense. It would have made total sense for Punk to become the ECW World Champion at that point. And and if you can recall, if you watched the Wrestle Talk like reaction videos and all that stuff, they did um like a watch along on that December to Dismember pay per view, or that match, by the way, and they like Luke Owen says like like hopefully Punk doesn't go out first, and then like boom and Punk's gone. Oh boy, like damn it, like that was the one guy that you could have like put in your eggs in one basket and like just let them like carry into the ECW future. Um, I mean, plus like we had like some other people that came in, but like I know like around that time too, like they wanted to have like they had like Johnny Nitro coming in. They wanted to have Chris Benoit coming in and kind of like help revive the brand and all that stuff too, which would have been cool. But like that whatever that happens, with that thing that happened that day, you know, having the murders and all that stuff. Um, but it ran until February 16th, 2010. And then it became defunct, and then got replaced with NXT. And NXT is what it is today. Like, yeah, 20 years later, or no, 16 years later. Yeah, 16 years later. Um, Also, we had some events from it too, being Extreme Rules and Heat Wave. So, hey, we can get what we can get from this. Um, and it sucks, like talking about ECW, but I mean, this SummerSlam, it feels to me, if you just taken the Benoit match, the Edge and Matt Hardy match, and then the Kurt Angle match and all stuff, and put it on the pre-shows and all that shit, um, it basically became just a 5 match show. It would have been fine. It would have had some good buy rates because since it is Hulk Hogan and Shawn Michaels, um, Hogan sells tickets, obviously. Let's just be real. But I think it was like one of those dream matches where it's like it didn't happen at the right time because Hogan was on his way out, Shawn Michaels was on the rise, and plus they were both in different companies at the same time. So I guess it was kind of just trying to wait for the right thing. But this Hulk Hogan here, this was Hogan's first SummerSlam appearance since 1991. So let that sink in. Um, like, jeez, 91. So that would have been, gosh, that would be, I would say 14 years. Um, but yeah, like, I mean, it's still not it's not the best pay-per-view of all time in '05. They could have just saved this for Mania that year or next year, I should say. But no, you get what you can get for this. But that will do my time here on this topic here today. I really do appreciate you guys listening and or watching this video. If you have made it to the very end of this video, we do really appreciate it. And follow us on all social media links in the description below, which will take you to the Linktree page, which will take you to our Instagram pages, Twitter pages, podcast Reddit pages on there. My gaming YouTube channel is on there. And tonight's song of the night, it is going to be What's Up by Four Non-Blondes. There is a music video for it. And that is it. And I will see you guys next Thursday. Peace.